What happens when a world-class nutritionist uses blood panels, cellular biology, and fact-based science to create and monitor healthy eating plans with supplements for her clients? Everyone wins. Welcome to Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy, an educational experience that gives you both the actionable and practical tools you can use every day to get your health, weight, and life back on track.
Let me tell you a little bit about how I got kind of started in this. Well, I actually was planning on going to vet school. I have a minor in biochemistry, and I was fascinated by how nutrients and micronutrients were used both in soil and soil sciences, as well as animal feeding and animal husbandry. It was just fascinating to me. And then my health took a turn for the worse. I actually was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder after hemorrhaging from a tonsillectomy. They weren't sure what was going on. It took a couple years, lots of prednisone, some anti-rejection drugs, everything from Cellcept to Imurin, 60 milligrams of prednisone. Boy, was that a wild ride. Before they finally figured out that I had ITP, which is an autoimmune disorder that actually attacks your body's platelets. So the things that would create clotting factors, kind of important. That's why I hemorrhaged after what would be a pretty routine surgery. Anyway, in that process, one of the things that happened was I had to fight for my own health. I had to figure out how I could get off of the drugs that were really wreaking havoc in the body. I'd lost part of the kidney function in my right kidney. I was hospitalized because I was having significant reaction to the drugs that I was on, as well as it wasn't really doing a great job in regulating my values in my blood. My labs weren't great, even though I was on a ton of medication. All my life, I had what they called systemic eczema. So I was like one of those kids that had just terrible food allergies, the real thick eyelashes, but the allergy shiners, cracked, dry lips, the rashes behind the knees and the elbows. And it was always difficult as a kid because there was a lot of things I couldn't eat, a lot of things I couldn't consume. And later, what I learned in studying kind of the body and the body's mechanisms and how the metabolism works and how all of the immune system works together, I learned that part of that, what they call atopic disorder, really was a precursor or a foreshadowing, if you will, to going into full-blown autoimmunity. So there I was planning on going to vet school. I had an alternate position, working for a company, though, that had a lot of different natural health therapy, integrations. So it was something that kind of on that side I was, maybe flirting with a little bit, maybe starting to kind of go, well, it's interesting. Definitely being a kid with food allergies, I grew up knowing what millet and quinoa and kale was because I had to eat very clean or I rashed out kind of from head to toe. But it really wasn't something that I was integrating, being in my early 20s, that I was integrating in my life as a lifestyle. And then, as I said, my health really took a turn for the worse, and I was really in crisis. And it was at that point that I said, I've got to do something different, or I've got to figure this out, or I've got to be able to biohack my body, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it, and see if I can't either, one, get these drugs to be wildly effective in my body, or two, figure out how to heal my body so that I didn't even need the drugs. So that kind of sent me on this crazy journey to understand if I could take some of the principles that I was watching, plants and crops and herbs grow just incredibly at a healthier and better rate because they were infusing the soil with nutrients. And if I couldn't infuse the soil in my own body with the right nutrients that could really change how maybe I could become drug resistant, I could become bug resistant, I could become, hailstorm resistant. How could I strengthen my own body so that I could weather the storm? So that sent me again on this journey. And it was a journey that I have no intention of getting off of. And in this journey, I've had the opportunity to just meet amazing and incredible people just like me that are trying to figure out, how can they find their path to wellness? How can they free themselves from feeling like their physical, emotional, their body that they carry around all day long is one that's thriving and not just surviving? So to kind of fast forward a little bit, I was able to biohack my body. I was able to come off all of the medications that I had been on. I have beautiful platelets to date, knock on wood. If you guys hear that big thud, 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 that's me touching wood a little bit here. And in that process, I also changed my life's work. So I became a nutritionist. I became a natural health practitioner. I became specializing in incorporating and integrating all kinds of therapies. But probably the one thing that I was the most proud of is that I became a diehard advocate for individuals going through health struggles. And really, that's how my clinic began. So as you said, obviously, I didn't continue going to vet school. I obviously am not seeing dogs and cats, horses and pigs, sheep and snakes in my clinical office, although I have many, many of those as part of my family. But in my clinic, I see real people. And whether those people are individuals that are, top athletes looking to seek, incredible performance, or individuals like myself who are just hoping that there's some way that you can turn your health around. I have a lot of food philosophies around using those nutrients to enrich the soil that's your body so that you can weather the storm, but you can also grow and be healthy and flourish so that you can have this abundance of energy. And I always look at it as a bounty to give back, right? So again, we'll go back to the clinic. It's kind of cool that we're coming right into this podcast. I've got a guest here today that is a client that I said, hey, you got questions for me outside of the office? I want you to come on in and make sure that you ask it in front of with all these people here that maybe are struggling with the same thing, because that's what I found. I found that I wasn't the only person out there that had their body just completely trashed by the only thing that I thought was the option for me, which was a ton of medication. And I didn't understand that I actually had the ability to heal my body. And now with clients, I have some clients that our goal is always to go as natural as possible, as healthful as possible. But sometimes I have clients that have to be on a medication. It's a life-saving medication. Well, how can we keep that body healthy through that process? How can we put power on the plate? And how can we also create like these crazy, amazing protocols for progress so that you're not being seen by a doctor or being seen by a practitioner, but you're actually the captain of your team and you're creating this kind of health and wellness journey. So we're going to do a couple fun things today. I want to talk a lot about what happens in my clinic because I'm your nutritionist now. But, I've also had a 25 years now of clinical experience working with some of the top doctors in the world, some of the top practitioners in the world. So if you have questions, we're going to have an opportunity in the second half of the show where you can call in. Maybe you have already checked me out. It's HayliePomroy.com on the website. You can get free newsletters. I've got incredible recipes. There's a whole educational section. We teach webcasts. We do, it's all about educating yourself, being in awe of your body and finding out how you can have the health that you deserve and should have and can have. And I believe in you and I know you can do it. Believe me, if I can, you can. And then also when you have questions, you can always go to our Facebook page. We have a private Facebook page too, where there's a little more discreet. Some of our questions are very candid. In the clinic, I always say that the chair that my clients sit in is the chair that makes the whole world at that moment, at that given time, the whole world revolves around them, around finding solutions, around being, moments of maybe being cathartic, moments of being where we maybe celebrate some successes together, but really about getting the help that you need. So, I get asked a lot, like, what's unique about what happens in the practice? What's unique about my books? And I would have to say that I think first and foremost is that I believe that anything's possible. As long as we're still breathing, our bodies have amazing and incredible ability to regenerate and heal and pick life and vitality over degeneration. So regeneration is possible. The other thing is that, again, if I don't know the answers, I love the journey. So we go into these great, amazing journeys with clients where it's all about figuring out what's going on and why and how and what resources we can get. So a couple things I want to talk about today. I want to talk about, one, creating a health wish list. So it's so important. When I was in that space, that crazy, insane space, I had a doctor ask me, why are you so hell-bent on getting off of these drugs? And I said, it's not about getting off of the drugs. I take them every day, 10 times a day. If they made me feel good, I feel awful. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I have a rash. I'm losing my kidney function. I remember having 18 bruises on my right leg because with ITP, you have a tendency to bruise easily. My gums bled. My hair was falling out. And I just said, it's not that I'm hell-bent on getting off of these meds. I am hell-bent on feeling amazing, and nobody's going to stop me. And so when my clients come through the door, and I want you to start thinking about this, what is your health wish list? And I want you to dream big. Don't take anything off the table. Do you want to run faster, jump higher, sleep deeper, love deeper? Do you want to know how to make something super easy in your kitchen? Whatever your health wish list is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to encourage you, if you're calling in today, I want you to know, I want you to stake your claim. Let me know, what is it that you want for your health? The other thing is, no matter who you see as a practitioner, whether it's a nutritionist, a dietitian, internal medicine doctor, the top neurologist in the world, you want to walk in and walk out. You want to walk in with a desire for a protocol for progress and walk out the door with that. When I was going through that and the doctors were asking me, okay, here, we're going to taper you down on prednisone, then we're going to burst you up again, and then we're going to layer CellCept because you're not tolerating Imurin. I took Mepron. The list was so large. And I would say, what is it going to take for me to get off of those? And I'll never forget, I was 21 years old. And he said, oh, you're never getting off of these. We've just got to figure out how long you can tolerate them and hope that there's a new drug that comes along in time for when you stop tolerating them. And I just said, that's insane and that's crazy. So I said, I'm going to ask you again. And this is the question that I always tell people, my clients, to ask when they go in. What is it going to take? What is it going to take for me not to be considered diabetic again? What is it going to take for me to be able to lose weight, to be able to burn fat for fuel, to be able to take food and turn it into energy? What is it going to take, and how are we going to measure the progress? It's not if it's going to happen. It's that it's going to happen, and what is it going to take to make it happen? The other thing is, when you call in, or as you're enjoying this, as you're participating with us on HayliePomroy.com, as you're in our Facebook group, know that it's all okay if, and only if, it promotes real change. So whatever your health philosophy, whether you believe in Ayurvedic medicine or Chinese medicine, Taoism, 5 elements, internal medicine, pharmaceutical, the more the better, the many the merry, whatever it is that you believe in philosophically, I'm going to always ask you one thing. Is it promoting real change that's going to make your health wish list a checklist? So as you call in today, make sure that your questions, I want you to be bold and stake your claim. And I have a client here today that's got some things that he's going to ask us about, and we're really excited about that. Our whole world is about bringing together real people. That means people that actually travel and struggle and have victories and have stressors, real people that incorporate real food or whole products to evoke real change. Again, today, when you're calling in, make sure if you have questions, I want to know what's on your health wish list. And let's talk about some ideas for a protocol for progress for you. I'm going to give you some ideas that you can start today, not tomorrow, not theory. The one thing is, if you've read all my books, they are not fluffy. They are science-based. They are not about some theory that someone thinks that could possibly happen. I am results-oriented, as you know, as you can imagine. And so we're going to make sure that we have tips for things that you can do today, whether they're ways to thin it in a minute. We have a whole series on that. Whether they're ways to, we have a Dear Dr. Sanders letter, how to prepare for your next office visit. We have some great articles on labs and how to look at that and what does that mean in your body. And of course, we have some of the most healthful and delicious recipes in the world on our site. So we're going to take a couple questions here. And don't forget to go to HayliePomroy.com, type in maybe chicken or beef, and look at all the incredible recipes. Don't forget, desserts and pleasure in my philosophy can be the reason why you lose weight. Put power on your plate And before I take my first question, I want to leave you with this. If you're considering doing a diet, I want you to ask yourself, what does that mean? For me, it means, did I eat today? Did I eat today to evoke real change to make your health wish list a health checklist? All right, everybody, here we go. I have been talking, and I've had one of my clients, Steve, here today. Steve, thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Absolutely. He's been listening to me talk about the power that you can put on your plate and that anything's possible. And Steve, do you have any questions for me today?
I do, Haylie. Listen, when I come and see you, you are so full of energy all the time. and I travel in my line of work, I travel incessantly, and I'm constantly adjusting to time changes and late night business dinners and so forth. How do you do it? How do you keep the energy that you have?
There's so many things. I have a ton of blog posts about travel on HayliePomroy.com, but really there's two things that I always do. I always eat within 30 minutes of waking. No matter where I'm at, I go to that time zone and I eat within 30 minutes of waking. So I see you have, I take my cleanse shake with me all the time, whether I bring packets of oatmeal. I use an immune boosting tea as the liquid to make my oatmeal. So I'll use like Immune Boost or Echinacea tea as the actual liquid to make my oatmeal. I bring raw nuts and seeds. So no matter what, I eat within 30 minutes of waking. If I have I got into something bad, I have clients that, maybe they have a food hangover, a alcohol hangover, a ham hangover, whatever happened the night before is gone when you wake up in the morning and you start first thing eating within 30 minutes of waking. The other one, and it sounds really basic, is I hydrate. It is easy to get dehydrated when you travel. Remember that dilution is the solution for pollution. What I mean by that is that if you can wash away or continue to keep yourself hydrated, your body is going to release a lot of what you're exposed to when you travel. Let me add one little tip too, is I always make sure that I have food the second I get home available to me, whether it's something that I've prepackaged myself, like I've made the chili, I've made the warrior soup. I also do sometimes I use one of the services to have groceries delivered to make sure that they get there. I order it right when I get to the airport so that I have fresh food, because one of the things happens is you're exhausted. You get off the plane, maybe you're delayed, maybe you haven't had enough food. Hopefully you have your crash stashes, things like what my kids call them Haylie bars, things like the bars, the shake, the jerky. But when you walk in that door, maybe there's some fresh berries. And then remember, when you travel and you're hydrated and you've kept your blood sugar stabilized because you've had your breakfast within 30 minutes of waking, I'm sitting here looking at you going, are you doing all these things?
Man.
That your adrenals are a little bit stressed. And so fruit can really help kind of calm the adrenals and get you settled back into home. So I walk in the door, I try to have like mangoes, berries, if I have frozen black cherries, just things that are going to say, okay, you're back home. And time travel or traveling on a plane especially, there are stressors that we're not even aware of, definitely like radiation exposure and all those studies and things like that. But also I don't know that our bodies are really meant to be going 500 and 800 miles per hour. So when you get home, you've got to kind of nestle back into quote unquote home or maybe the hotel. So I'm looking at you and I'm wondering if you're doing many of those things. But if you want to know how I have the energy that I have, I always eat within 30 minutes of waking. I bring a crash stash. I stay hydrated. And I come home to a bounty full of fruit.
Okay, well, that's pretty simple. I have no excuses if I can't do that. Can I sneak in one more question?
Absolutely.
I'm happy to report that I just had my annual physical and my labs are better than ever. So thank you. I've been seeing you for the last 7 or 8 months and it's awesome. There was one thing, however, I'm trying to remember that the bad cholesterol. Mm-hmm. It's LDL. Is that what it's
LDL.
called?
LDL. And the way I always remember that is low down, dirty lipoprotein.
Well, it was threatening the danger zone, wasn't quite there. And he said you might just think about going on, I think they're called statins. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I'm not real excited about that.
Right.
So I was just wondering, I obviously don't want to take any undue risks, but is there a way I can alter my diet to mitigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also a couple things to think about. Everybody's talking about cholesterol medications right now, statins specifically, whether it's Lipitor or a multifaceted one like Crestor, an old one like Gymfibrazil. They're talking a lot about maybe we're overprescribing those. Maybe they don't have the cardiovascular benefit that everybody was kind of hoping, that they were this kind of miracle drug that would prevent plaque and blockage in the arteries. And really the research is leaning a lot more towards inflammation. And I know you and I, the rest of everybody listening out there in podcast world might not know, but you and I have worked a lot on inflammation and inflammation pathways. And so our body takes the cholesterol molecule and it actually metabolizes that through a pathway, a group of enzymes called cytochrome P450. Everybody write that down. It's kind of a fascinating metabolic pathway in the body. And it takes that cholesterol molecule and it actually manufactures all of your anti-inflammatory and pro-inflammatory hormones out of it. So if you're researching or listening to any of the news and media about statin drugs right now, everybody's talking about inflammation and inflammation pathways, and that we want to look at different things. So when we look at the LDL starting to creep up, we want to look at a couple things. One, we want to look at how are we processing things through that metabolic pathway of those enzymes? So how are you breaking down the cholesterol molecule? Because there's people that eat eggs and shrimp every day that don't have elevated LDL. And then there's people that eat these crazy, terrible low-fat diets that have elevated LDLs. So yes, you can consume cholesterol, but your body actually manufactures it too, because it's the precursor for all those hormones. So Steve, why is your body manufacturing a little bit of extra LDL? How can we get your body to take that gold mine of LDL and manufacture it into all of the heart-healthy hormones? So from a preventative perspective, you and I, we're going to be looking at another lab that's called a CRP, or cardiovascular specific reactive protein. That's going to let us see if you're creating the enzyme that is inflammatory that actually creates plaque, okay? Because you can have tons of cholesterol circulating in the blood and not create any plaque. You can also have a low cholesterol. We've seen individuals as low as 145. Remember, they want to keep you under 200, but under 172, 170, you start to have memory and cognition issues. We've seen people as low as 145 have blocked arteries. So it's not that you're circulating cholesterol, it's are you creating the inflammatory enzymes that actually create the cholesterol to stick to the walls? So you and I, we're going to look at that. But from a food perspective, we're going to really focusing on activating those enzymes so we can take the cholesterol and turn it into these amazing feel-good hormones. How are we going to do that? Of course, I'm always saying vegetables are unlimited. But this time we're going to say vegetables, double the dose, are mandatory.
How about the red wine here?
The red wine. The red wine. Okay, so now doubles. Did I say vegetables are going to double? If you're going to add and layer that in, vegetables are going to be quadrupled. What I want you to do is I want you to oscillate between raw and cooked vegetables. So I want you to pick, some people do a meatless Monday. I want you to do a raw veggie Saturday or Sunday, or pick one day a week where you're doing raw vegetables 5 times a day. Then I want you to pick one day a week where you do absolutely no raw food and only cooked vegetables. One of the things that happens when you do raw vegetables is they're very difficult to break down. They're very hard for the body. So from the moment you start chewing to then when they hit the stomach to when the body starts to absorb those micronutrients, you're absorbing a lot of phytonutrients that are in the raw vegetables that go away when they're cooked, but that create we're going to call it positive peer pressure or positive stress response in the body, that your body actually has to create a unique grouping of enzymes in order to deal with that many raw vegetables in one setting. So we're going to kind of stimulate this. Then we're going to do the cooked vegetables, which actually allows, why we do them a lot when everybody says do veggie soup when you're sick, when you have a fever, do a chicken soup. We're going to do a whole day with cooked vegetables because they deliver micronutrients really easily to the body. So we're going to use these pumping mechanism to actually stimulate that cytochrome P450 pathway, metabolic pathway, so that you can take your cholesterol. LDL is low down dirty lipoprotein because it has a low density. When it has a low density, think about the blood flushing through the veins. And if it's a low density, it kind of bobs around and can bind to the artery walls easier. If it's a high density, it actually pushes through with the flow of the blood. So we want those low density lipoproteins to be broken down actually into the healthy hormones. So I want you to cycle. I want to check your CRP. We want to make sure that you're not in a pro-inflammatory state. That's much more important to me than an elevated or mildly elevated total cholesterol. We want to make sure that we've got low inflammation in the body. And then we're going to do that oscillation between a day a week of cooked vegetables and a day a week of raw vegetables. Make sure on the website you look at the warrior soup, the deburn soup. Go in and just punch in on HayliePomroy.com, soups, or when you come in the office, the girls can print it out for you, or we can email it to you. But just go in and punch in soups, and you will see I have so many incredible recipes. And when you make them double batched, triple batched, and that way you can freeze them. So again, when you're traveling, you come home, and that can be your cooked soup day or your cooked veggie day. And we can play with that. Does those sound like some practical things?
Great. Thanks so much, Haylie. Thanks for all you do.
It was nice for you to come into the clinic today. Let's take a couple phone calls. We are having way too much fun over here. We are going to take our first caller. This caller is Dana. Dana is from Orange County, California. Dana, are you there?
Hi, Haylie. I'm so excited I got through.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you. How can we help you today?
Well, I have a family history of thyroid. All the way back to my mother's side, she actually had radioactive iodine.
Oh, wow.
When she was younger, actually, before she had kids. All three of the sisters all have thyroid issues. About 2 years ago, I had a thyroid nodule that they had biopsied. Everything was fine with that. I also had Hashimoto's, but the doctor says, basically, oh, you're fine. You don't need to do anything. See you in a year.
Wow.
Help.
So I probably asked you a couple of questions, but just to get everybody up to speed, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is what it's called. And we do see it a lot familially. It is considered an autoimmune disorder. Usually there's two variations on the theme. So it's not necessarily an issue that the thyroid doesn't produce, like what we normally hear as a hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism. The thyroid produces too much. Hypo, the thyroid doesn't produce enough. But with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Dana, usually what we're seeing is, usually if the doctor diagnoses you with that, we're seeing either an antibody or a peroxidase. So there's two labs that minimally that we typically have our clients run with this, the antithyroid antibody or ATA and a thyroid peroxidase. And sometimes we see people with one or both positive and are diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. The other thing that we want to look at is all of the other autoimmune markers. So in, let's see, FoodRx, that book, there's a whole section on autoimmunity. You can also go to the website, and I've got a list of additional labs to run, things like sedimentation rates, ANA titers, eosinophils. You definitely want to look at, is there typically can also be an allergy piece. But it's kind of unfortunate because oftentimes a lot of physicians feel like Hashimoto's is really a disorder of the thyroid. And so they say, well, maybe your TSH levels, your thyroid stimulating hormone, which is not even a thyroid hormone, it's a pituitary hormone. Maybe that's normal. Maybe your T4 or T3. T4 is the hormone that the thyroid produces. Through the liver pathways, it converts it into T3, which is the bioactive hormone. Maybe those are normal with individuals that have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, but they're not really sure. A lot of doctors aren't really sure what to do with the autoimmune disorder that it is. So there are some amazing and great things that you can do. We have, like I said, in FoodRx, and you can go to the website, there is specific foods that are really, really good to put power on your plate from an autoimmune perspective. Typically, individuals with autoimmunity have sensitivity to the top allergens. So we normally see individuals have some sort of sensitivity to wheat and gluten. It's not just because that's trendy, it's actually because it's a glycoprotein, which is very much mimics the carriers in our own blood with our own DNA. And if you're having an autoimmune response, your own immune system is reacting negatively to your own cell. So having that kind of similarity in the food source, we see that people are sensitive to that. Typically, things, most common allergens like dairy, corn, wheat, those are all things that we find that if you can eliminate, that can be helpful. One thing that I would definitely say is on the website, we have a Dear Dr. Sanders letter. You might want to print that out. It's also in the FoodRx book, but it helps you prepare for your next doctor's visit, which is, I have this issue. I'd like these labs run, and we take you through that process. But also, what are they creating for your protocol for progress? So are any lab values, and you need to chart this yourself, make a spreadsheet, write it down, go in every visit, because they see tons and tons of clients. I always say, tell them something meaningful about yourself, either funny joke or something that's going to make them kind of maybe snap out of the monotony of their day and really know that you're this special patient, right? But specifically with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and especially if you've had a history of cold nodules, it's really important that we know what's normal in your chemistry and what's off in your chemistry. So again, I want you to go and get that list of labs to have run, SED rates, ANA titers, definitely T4, T3, reverse T3, TSH. Sex hormone binding globulin is really important with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And then all of the sex hormones, estrogens, fractionated, progesterone, testosterone, free and total, as well as, definitely vitamin D levels. Those are all really important to check. So you can say, okay, Haylie, I'm going to go and I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask the doctor to run all these, but then what do I do? What we want to do is, I always look at things as a scientist, right? What is normal first, so we can kind of take those off the table. And it doesn't mean that normal in labs doesn't mean health. It just means that the body can actually be in a state of dysfunction to create normalcy in that chemistry, right? But what are those values and which ones are the red flags are being flagged? And then looking at what we can do to balance and stabilize those. We use a natural bioflavonoid. We have a product that's called Metabolism Energy. It has a lot of quercetin in it. We also have a natural product in Metabolism Histamine, which has a lot of not only bioflavonoids, but help your body create its own kind of histamine blockers, balance eosinophils. Look at the even if you don't use supplements, right? I want you to do something. I want you to just go onto the website, look at what's the ingredients that's in it, and just Google kind of those ingredients and look at what mechanisms that they help the body. And see if you're having any symptoms associated with that. Are you having cracked heels, thinning in the eyebrows, especially out towards the corner of the eye? What we call where your hair starts to break off either in the crown or around the sides of the face, right? Are you starting to have little...
I have all those.
You have all those. Well, where I would first start is the other suggestion when you have a physician that says, I don't want to use the word patronizing because maybe that's too strong, but doesn't make you feel that he is taking and pulling you over the hurdle that you're having. So maybe he's even an adequate partner, but he's not going to drag you over the threshold or cross the chasm, right? Go in with some really good research, NIH, CDC research, any Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Harvard. There's really good articles on Hashimoto's thyroiditis. We have some amazing blog posts on articles that I've written that can really help if you bring in and do research sometimes for the physician. You have to remember, and I know that obviously you're making the effort to make the call, Dana, that your health has to be most important to you. And if you need to bring everybody along, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry that that's the case, but that's sometimes the way it is. But with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it's not something to just be poo-pooed. It's something that you want to make sure that you are creating a standard of what your body's saying from a chemistry perspective, that you're checking that in the beginning. Typically with my clients, we do every 8 to 12 weeks to make sure that, again, like I always tell you, I'm results oriented, that we're actually evoking a change in the body's chemistry. And then also go to our website, HayliePomroy.com, and there's a health wish list. And on the health wish list, there's a questionnaire that says, kind of list all of your symptoms. There are traditional symptoms with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, but there might be some things that you're not thinking of. For example, not waking, feeling rested, not being able to obtain quick, deep sleep. Any areas of inflammation in whether it's in the hands or the feet or the elbows, those can all correlate with that autoimmune aspect of it. So let's get, really good labs run. Let's make a real clear list of our symptoms. And then let's look at the foods in the food RX. And specifically, we have a way to modify for thought. Now, I want you to think about modifying for autoimmune issues, not modifying for thyroid issues with Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because so many people think that it's a disorder of the thyroid, but it's actually related to how your body's immune system is responding to you. So we want it to be in love with you, not in combat with you. Thanks for calling, Dana.
Thank you.
It has been awesome sitting here talking with you, Steve and Dana, calling in. That was amazing. I want to make sure that you guys have all the access to the things that I've recommended to both Steve and Dana so far. And they're all available on my website at HayliePomroy.com. They are in the membership section, though. A lot of them. You can still get incredible, great recipes and free newsletters. But for those health wish lists, the charts, the Dear Dr. Sanders letters, those are all in the membership section of our website. Not to worry though, you can use the code JOINMEFREE and you can have 30 days of our membership for free. So make sure that you are filling out all those questionnaires for yourself. You're taking in those requests to your doctors. You're creating protocols for progress. And let's keep this science geek going. We've got another call. This is another Haylie from Los Angeles. Thanks for calling. And, how can I help you?
Hi, Haylie. Thank you so much. I just have a question about some of these current diets that a lot of people are talking about, like keto or eating paleo. Are there any of them that you highly recommend, or one that you recommend more than the other? Or, I just want to know what you think about some of these trendy diets that a lot of people are talking about and that a lot of health foods seem to be targeting right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty big business, the diet industry. And that's a great question, Haylie. So, first and foremost, I've been in clinical practice for over 25 years, and I've seen pretty much every diet fad kind of come and go and be recirculated. I've had just about every book kind of cross my desk, from, to your point, keto or the DASH diet or 5 of these and don't eat that. And, I have written myself 5 nutrition books with the concept of diet being, did I eat today to achieve whatever it is, particularly in your health? So the thing that I always say is, first define what it is that you're wanting from a food protocol. And secondly, if it's not something that you would do to your dog or your cat or someone that you love, don't do it to yourself nutritionally. So what I mean by that is, if you get up in the morning and you walk out the door and you have, a beloved pet and you don't feed them for hours and hours and hours, that would be deemed as cruel. It would also be very bad for the dog's, psyche, for their digestion, for their coat. And it's definitely bad for the human population, in my opinion. So I'm not a big believer in fasting unless it's for medical, spiritual, or religious reasons. I think that when you incorporate that intention behind those, that the body knows that it's not a stressful famine experience. Being in the agriculture industry, in the animal science industry, we used the production of ketones definitely in the dairy industry to hyperproduce milk production. And there are many organizations that have really come out strongly against that being a cruelty to animal issue. And so when keto got really popular, gosh, I just was super frustrated that I was seeing that the diet industry was kind of yet again taking advantage of people really, really struggling with their health. When you do something to alter metabolic pathways, like in keto diet, you can lose weight. The issue is that it doesn't heal the metabolism. It doesn't even begin to address the why it's become difficult to lose weight, the why the body doesn't have energy, the why the body doesn't burn fat for fuel. So that's one that just kind of makes me, really kind of breaks my heart. As far as paleo, it again, I think with the popularity with CrossFit, it was kind of an interesting marriage, maybe not formally, but an interesting marriage that we saw with this particular type of exercise and incorporating a particular type of food style. And even the concept to going back to Paleolithic times, or, times cavemen eating, or, there's been a lot of different verbiage around it. My trepidation about that is making sure that we don't alleviate any particular foods in our diet that are considered whole foods, that we really look to see if you're getting and achieving what you want from it. I've had individuals that, have had some pretty negative response from it, and individuals that seem to love and flourish on it. For me, I always say that it's really important to define what it is that you want out of any food program, and then make sure that you're getting that. So above weight loss, we have to have health gain. And that's, I think, critical in any of those. But just about every fad diet's probably come across my desk, and some of them are heartbreaking. And fasting and keto, for me, as a practitioner dealing with individuals that have really significant health issues, that have slow metabolisms, that have caused metabolic dysfunction in their body, to me, it's, quite frankly, it's abusive. And I think that it's kind of preying on individuals that are desperate for a change in their lives. But, there's all kinds of ways that you can play with food and put power on your plate. And the biggest thing is turn towards food to get the health that you desire, Haylie. And when it's classified as a fad diet, it's usually because it will come and it will go. And then if you wait a couple more years, it'll cycle back in. So you want to make sure that you're looking at your metabolism. You want to make sure that you're using real food to evoke real change, because after all, we're all real people and human beings that deserve, just like our beloved pets and animals, to have food and nourishment and joy and enjoyment when we put power on our plate. Haylie, thanks for calling. That's a great question.
Thank you so much.
As I've said to you guys all along, nothing is off the table. We can talk about anything as it pertains to you and your health. And I want you to know that there are all kinds of ways that you can engage with myself and my team. At HayliePomroy.com, we have our membership. Don't forget, join me free. We'll get you 30 days free membership. We have a free newsletter. You want to make sure that you get that because I send recipes, delicious, incredible recipes. And I'm always science geeking out on those. We also have events that you can attend. Some are webinars that are free. You can also cruise the Eastern Caribbean with me on Cruise Your Way to a Fast Metabolism. That is 7 incredible days that we're going to spend together science geeking out about you, your body, your health, your wellness. We're going to create protocols for progress. We're going to turn that health wish list into a checklist. And above all else, we're going to break amazing bread together, have incredible food, and a blast. So wherever you're at, however you feel that you're ready for the support, we have that for you. Make sure you check out the website at HayliePomroy.com. We're going to take another caller. I love doing this. It looks like we have Sarah from New York. Sarah, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you so much, Haylie. It's an honor to speak with you.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Sarah, how can I help you? How can we get power on that plate? What can I do to see if we can't kick around some great ideas for your health together?
I suffer from the afternoon exhaustion.
Okay.
Like 2, 3 o'clock. I have no more energy. I'd love some suggestions. I drink a ton of water. I need little guidance in that area.
Absolutely. So there's a couple things that I look at when a person tells me that they're fatigued in the afternoon. And it can depend a little bit on if it's around food or without food. So there's 3 things that we look at. One, we look at dysglycemia, or making sure that the blood sugar levels stay stable throughout the day. So in an individual that's not doing a particular nutrition plan like the fast metabolism diet or the burn or something like that, but just in general eating really good health, sometimes we need to make sure that we get a fruit at lunch so that it can, and not away from lunch, but actually with your meal, so that it can help keep your blood sugar stable post consuming your lunch. If you're a person that gets tired after you eat, so if you're telling me, Haylie, I have lunch and about an hour and a half, I need to take a nap, we need to look at digestive enzymes. So we have this test. It's kind of like a home diagnostic test that you can do. It's called the Digestive Reserve Test or the Lemon Challenge Test. You can go to the website. It's really easy to do. You just need pH strips and a lemon. And we have you try the lemon and test your pH of the saliva and see how long it takes you to kind of stabilize. If it takes a long time, the body doesn't have a really good digestive reserve. And I've got a list of great foods that would support that. So that's a great way for us to know if it's digestive based. So after lunch specifically, the body has a tendency to have a little bit harder time to digest. If it's not food based and it's not blood sugar based, then we want to look at adrenal reserves, or what we call adaptogenic hormones. So like in the afternoon, Sarah, what happens is the body has these 2 parts of the nervous system. One's called parasympathetic tones and one's called sympathetic tones. The best way that I remember or can kind of get these straight is sympathetic tones are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? And parasympathetic tones are deep restorative sleep. Of course they do. I could write 40 volumes of books on what the nervous system does, but this is a way that I kind of isolate that out. So in different aspects of medicine, like in Chinese medicine, they call the afternoon 3, 4 o'clock the point of reflection. In like when you're doing workshops on how to get work done in a day, they'll talk about that point in the day where you say, okay, what did I get done today? How much time do I have left at work? And what can I get done before the end of the day? Well, part of that is a natural process in the nervous system where the body starts to come into more of the rest and restoration hormones naturally, right?
Mhm.
But when it's overwhelming and it doesn't feel like in balance, you're not able to sustain energy through that transition, means that we need to nurture the adaptogenic or adrenal hormones more effectively. We have a specific program for adrenal and stress. I don't want to say stress reduction because unfortunately I don't have a magic wand that can change the particular environment that maybe is creating some stress or exhaustion or physical stress. But what I can do is make your body stronger and more resilient so that you're stress resistant, right? Okay. So in the Food RX book, we definitely have an adrenal protocol. We have supplements that are specific for balancing that. I don't like products that are a stimulant, right? I don't like things that are going to just drive the body harder. What I want to do is I want to make you stronger so that you can sustain energy throughout the day. So if you go to the website, there is a booklet on adrenal reserve that we have, and there's a whole food protocol and specific foods. On the fast metabolism diet, we have phase 1 of the fast metabolism diet, which is the first part of the week is really adrenal restorative. We have a program that's called a phase 1 intensive, which is like a week-long boot camp for regenerating and restoring the adrenals. So the first thing that I would do is make sure that it's usually one of those 3 things. It's typically either digestive reserves aren't adequate enough. And again, you can do the lemon challenge test. It's a really simple at-home thing. And you can go, whoa, Haylie, my digestive reserves are really lacking. Then I give you a sheet of foods to make sure that those are nurtured. Then you recheck your digestive reserve test and you go, oh, it's pretty good. And you're also saying your energy level's better. The other thing is looking at maybe just adding a fruit at lunch and seeing if that helps you stabilize your blood sugar in that afternoon. And then that third thing is seeing if your adaptogenic or adrenal hormones need more nurturing. There's a couple, again, kind of at home things people do. I don't know if you've ever heard the kind of, you can have your doctor do this when you go to the office. Ask the nurse, say, I'd like to do this little test for my adaptogenic hormones. I'd like you to take my blood pressure laying down on the table, and then I'd like to sit up and have you take my blood pressure. If the spread is more than 15 points, your body's having a hard time adapting to the shift in the nervous system. Because as soon as we lay prone, our body naturally produces hormones that are for rest and restoration. And as soon as we stand up, our body's producing hormones that are for excitation and movement. So those are some just like cool things that we can find out, Sarah, what specifically to do for your body.
Oh, well, this is awesome. I'm going to try everything. And I'm going to do the lemon test right now.
Yay. We'll be in awe. Anytime your body says, I don't make that wish list and dream big. I want an abundance of energy from 2 to 4 o'clock every day, right? You should have that. And what we want to do is say, what is that your body's saying? And do a little bit of self-diagnostic, a little bit of exploration, being in awe, and then nurture, and get the body built up so that it has the energy to do whatever the heck you want to do at 4 o'clock.
Okay. I can't thank you enough for your time, and I'm going to tackle this today.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Haylie.
We're having an awesome time. This is like being in the clinic all day long. I love the questions that you guys are calling in with. Remember to go to HayliePomroy.com, get your free newsletter, make sure that you're looking at all of our incredible, delicious recipes, and become a member today. You can do that for 30 days for free. Do join me free. All of these worksheets that I'm talking about, these self-exploration, self-diagnostic, things that you can do to learn more about what's going on in your body, as well as the incredible e-cookbooks that are specific for adrenal repair, some great travel tips, things about Hashimoto's thyroiditis, all kinds of goodies are there in your member dashboard. So make sure you become a member today. It's going to be one of the best things that you do for your health and wellness. We're going to take one final caller today, and this is going to be Barbara is joining us from Florida. Barbara, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Haylie. Good to talk to you.
Oh, hi, Barbara. How can we help you today?
I have a question regarding digestion, and I have a autoimmune disease called Sjogren's, which creates a lot of issues with dry mouth and not able to digest my foods. So I was wondering if you can kind of help me with ways I can hydrate myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for our listeners out there, Sjogren's is classified in the autoimmune world. It has a tendency to affect the mucosal linings of the body. So Barbara, things like the moistness of the eye, the moistness in the mouth, and to your point, definitely the mucosal lining, sometimes in the lungs, but definitely in the GI tract. And being autoimmune, one of the things that we want to look at is lowering your body's reactivity to its own mucosal linings or immune system. So we had another autoimmune caller earlier today, and there's some great foods we have in Food RX. That book specifically has a whole chapter on autoimmunity. And with Sjogren's specifically, it's really hard to focus on hydration when we're looking at just putting liquids or water into the body. The way with Sjogren's that we look at hydration is how do we get the water or the fluids that we put into the body to actually migrate into the mucosal linings or into the linings of the tissue. So a couple little tricks that we do. One is making sure that your blood values stay as least reactive as possible. So I'm not sure if you guys are regularly checking your what we call sedimentation rates, your inflammatory, your C-reactive proteins. With Sjogren's specifically, we look at 2 additional labs. We look at CK or creatinine kinase, as well as a lab that's called aldolase. My goal is to drive those numbers into the most normal range as possible with Sjogren's. And we do that by working with our anti-inflammatory protocol that we have on our website, HayliePomroy.com. You can look that up. It's in the member section, as well as specifically the autoimmunity protocol. And I'd like you to look at that, which is also there on the website. Just from a general perspective, a couple things that you can do at home from a digestive perspective is with Sjogren's, I find that a lot of people do better with cooked vegetables as opposed to raw vegetables. Anything that's heat related can be beneficial to the digestion. So I even have individuals that have what we say malabsorption sometimes with Sjogren's is sometimes I actually have them do a hot water bottle over their tummy after they eat to help increase blood flow. Things like infrared saunas can help to increase blood flow into the mucosal lining with an individual with Sjogren's. Sometimes even hot baths like deep Epsom salt baths. Anything warm with digestion, warming foods can be good. Sometimes they do really well with spicy foods, but be aware sometimes with autoimmunity, if you do a lot of spicy foods, sometimes that can promote inflammation if you're already in an inflammation cycle. If you're not running, labs all the time, in labs, we'd look at, again, C-reactive protein. From an inflammatory perspective, we'd also look at homocysteine levels. And these are all things that you can walk into the doctor's office and ask your doctor for. And we have that list that's the Dear Dr. Sanders letter. So we say, Dear Dr. Sanders, whatever your doctor's name is, I've been diagnosed with Sjogren's. Because of that, I'm noticing, and it gives you a list of what your symptoms are. I'm having a difficult time staying hydrated, and I'm having a difficult time with my digestion. I would like you to please run, and then you list your labs and why. And it helps the doctor together as a team. You guys have a real kind of clear picture or protocol. So if you are working really well and the inflammation is down, then the food program that would be really good is we have a program that's called the H-burn, because it's really high in the essential fatty acids, the lipids. So those are foods like avocado, raw nuts and seeds. Sometime with an autoimmune disorder, it's really good to soak your nuts and seeds before you eat them. So what I do, because I also have an autoimmune disorder, Barbara, is I'll take almonds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. I will put them in water overnight. I'll drain it, and then it's so much easier for me to digest and utilize those lipids or those fatty acids. Those fatty acids that are naturally occurring in those foods will help moisten naturally the mucosal lining of the eyes, of the digestive tract, of the mouth, and the nose. So it's a great trick because the fatty acids sometimes are hard to digest. It's a great trick to get those in more efficiently. So I want you looking at lots of our soups and broths. I want you checking your inflammatory factors regularly, charting those. and letting your doctor know that you've now decided that we're going to do everything that we need to do to get those as low as possible. I want you looking at the H burn for the lipids, but I want you soaking your nuts because you have an extra difficult time digesting them. And then I want you looking at the anti-inflammatory protocols that we have available.
Great. Thank you so much.
Does that give you some options there?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for calling, Barbara, and best of luck.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy. Please remember to share the amazing science and tools with someone you love. The more we know, the more we all lift our global health together. Visit www.hayliepomroy.com to get notes from today's show and to take your education and health to a new level of success and happiness.
Information on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for the advice provided by your physician or other healthcare professional or any information contained on or in any product label or packaging. You should not use the information on this podcast for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease or prescribing any medication or other treatment. You should always speak with your physician or other healthcare professional before taking any medication or nutritional, herbal, or homeopathic supplement or adopting any treatment for a health problem. If you have or suspect that you have a medical problem, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking professional advice because of something you've heard on this podcast. Information provided on this podcast and the use of any products or services purchased as a result of this podcast does not create any type of professional relationship between you and any of the associates affiliated with this podcast. Information and statement regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.